Bruce McCulloch is my guest. He's sitting in a sort of a mid-century designed room. It's got the old school radiator in the back. So you must be in Canada because we don't have those in the US anymore.
Yeah, well, you're being very delicate. I'm clearly in the crazy bin or the loony bin, as you call it in America. And so there's guards over my shoulders. And further, I'm wearing an orange jumper, which prison, but I'm actually in hospital.
Wouldn't that be a relief? How nice would it be to have a bunch of people in jumpsuits looking after you every day, and you can just be as crazy as you want to be?
Well, what a thing to do. If you were in prison, I would say yes to every podcast. Now I'm just, of course, discerning. I only say yes to yours and Mark.
I love it. I love it. Have you, are you in Canada?
Yes, I'm in Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And to repaint the picture for the three listeners is I am actually in my office in Toronto, and there's art over my shoulders, and I look like the oldest white man with art over my shoulders.
Yeah.
So fine, make fun of me.
Right.
So and again, great podcasting. I'll just show you my favorite object, my ceramic Kennedy head. Okay.
Wow. Still intact. That was pre-assassination Kennedy.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
You know what I love about Toronto? I love a lot about Toronto, but the Shoe Museum. Have you been to the Shoe Museum?
I have. I have a teenage daughter, so it felt like a good outing to go. It's like, wow, what really is there actually a shoe museum? And it's kind of interesting.
It's 3 stories. It's not like a little hole in the wall.
No, it's flats, sandals, and then platforms on the top floor.
Yes, you work your way up.
You're the joke writer. I'm an idea guy. I don't write jokes.
I remember when I went, they had a glam rock exhibit, and they had like Iggy Pop's shoes and David Bowie's stuff. It was awesome.
And Mark Bolan of T-Rex, hopefully.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
All those names.
Now, you were a punk rock kid growing up, right?
Yeah, I actually saw T-Rex, although T-Rex isn't really punk. But I was 14. I was in the one cool record store in Calgary, and God Save the Queen, the guy had it from somehow. It wasn't even out. He played it, and I just thought, like, this is my religion. I have found the beautiful thing to pair with my anger that makes sense of the world. And It did. All I cared about for like 10 years.
Wow.
I cared about music. Yeah.
That's an amazing thing about punk rock is how it finds people. It just it just sort of went out in the underground, and a lot of people, I heard it and I rejected it. I later embraced it, but when I was a teenager, I wasn't ready for it. There was something about you, and I had a drunk dad like you. Yep. I had a lot of anger, but what is it about the punk that made you respond?
Well, but also there's a variance of punk. Like there's Black Flag on one end, which was almost too much for me. But when you think of somebody like the Buzzcocks or the Dills or those kinds of bands, they're sort of sweet too.
Yeah, right.
They're kind of melodic, and they're maybe everybody's the original Outsiders. Maybe the Beat Poets were the original Outsiders, but they're kind of the original Outsiders, which is, I would love to say that we sort of followed that path, not in their footprints, but it's like, no, the world doesn't have to be the way it is or the way you think it is. And, I have a 15-and-a-half-year-old son, and he's really into rap music. Yeah. And I said, well, the thing about punk, son, and of course this won't get anywhere with him, is like, they're not talking about themselves. They're not going, I'm so cool and I'm so bad. Like they're just talking about the world. Like calling, I don't know. So that's what as I reflect on it now, as my daughter is luckily into Velvet Underground and YOLO Tango and stuff.
Nice.
I'm getting a nice resurgence of all that stuff.
That is an interesting thing, is it's so much rap is aimed at self-aggrandizing and bravado. And, there's an album out, Kendrick Lamar's new album. I don't know if you've heard that.
I have heard some of that. My son played it for me.
Oh my God. It's incredible. I mean, it is looking out. It's looking at the rap community and actually calling them to task for a lot of exactly what you don't like about it.
Yeah, and some is beautiful. Like I didn't realize until my son was playing it, like Kanye West is actually a genius. His music is effing beautiful. Some of it, like it's heroic and open and free. It's not, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah. So how about your Oilers? Doing pretty well?
The Flames beat them the first night,
Yeah.
and then I'm torn in that province. I actually was born in Edmonton, but found my comedy in Calgary. So
Okay.
When I'm in Edmonton, I'm Edmonton's own. When I'm in Calgary, I'm Calgary's own.
Okay.
So when the series comes, that they're playing each other, which is historic, I have to hide because everybody goes, "Oh, you're cheering for the Oilers, you're cheering for the Flames," and I go, "No, I'm cheering for Red Deer," which is halfway in the middle of those two. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is amazing that they're playing, but I'm not a huge hockey fan, but Connor McDavid is like, he's the future of hockey, basically.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's a sweet time, and of course the Leafs, same as it ever was, are out. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, I was riding that, Dave Foley and I text only occasionally. But during hockey, we're just like, oh, is this what happiness feels like when they score? And it's like, oh, fuck,
So I stayed up late last night because that new documentary came out of you guys. The what's it called?
It's called Craig Fitzsimmons has Alzheimer's. No, it's called Comedy Punks.
Way to let me just fucking hang out there. It's not like you didn't know it. You just wanted to see me suffer.
Yeah. It also helped that you froze for an instant. It just made it perfect. And it wasn't your most glorious face that froze.
I remember at one of the sketches that in your new series, actually, you freeze. It's a Zoom call with 6 people and nobody's supposed to masturbate. And of course, I'm not going to say how it ends. But at one point you froze. They go, "Are you frozen?" And you're like, "No, I'm coming."
That's my coming face. That's a little scene called masturbation pulse.
That poor guy, with the guy from the New Yorker who got caught.
Yeah,
masturbating on that Zoom. That's an esteemed journalist. This was a guy at the top of the profession. He was one of the most respected writers in the world.
And it's like, he liked to pontificate and be the smartest one in the room.
Yeah.
And it's like, a lot of things can turn me on. Maybe an IHOP waitress. I can't go in there without, but a Zoom call?
Yeah.
I don't know what about that, unless you just so hate your job that your little friend is all you can think about.
Right. No, that's just boredom stroking.
And just like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can get away with this. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like when I'm sitting in my office trying to write and it's like and you start thinking about masturbating. You're like, you're not horny. You're just fucking bored. Start writing.
You're just stuck, as you always are, the minute you start writing.
Yeah. What's your distraction in that office when you get stuck?
I actually have 2 great workers who I tease that aren't here today because it's our long weekend here. I don't know. My dog. I have 2 dogs. They come in. It's like, oh, I'm bored. Toffee, come here.
Yeah.
And I rub his fur. It's like, for good luck. Okay, let's do something else.
Yeah.
But I do find now, and I know you're a prolific writer. People say I wrote all day. Kevin McDonald will say I wrote all day.
Oh my God.
Hemingway didn't write all day.
Yeah. Right.
John Updike didn't write all day.
Yeah.
2 hours, maybe 1 hour.
Nothing truer has ever been said, and you can let yourself off the hook. I have a friend who, like Hemingway, gets up every morning after drinking all night, and he writes from 9 a.m. to noon, which is basically what Hemingway did. He wrote from, right. I think he wrote in the morning, and then the afternoon he went to the horse races, or he, hunted or whatever. And if you can do that and not torture yourself with 9-hour days alone in your office where you're filled with shame at the end of it. Jeez.
Oh no, it's ridiculous. it's like Mark McKinney does that. It's like, see, I like to write. So, and even when I was a 27-year-old or 26-year-old man, I would have a writer's assistant. And then if we were going to start at 10, I'd go like, it's 10. So you get your coffee. Oh, how are you? Okay. Don't answer. I got one idea. And so for me, I've always just started, and I've seen a lot of people, brilliant people like Mark McKinney, not so much now, but when he was younger, torture himself going like, oh, shall we go for a walk? Shall we go get a pretty dessert and it'll distract us and maybe we'll come up with an idea? It's like, can't we just sit and face each other like man and write?
It is. It's courageous to write. I mean, anything in the creative process, and this is something that's kind of like occurring to me recently, is that it's all fear. It's fear of failure. The thing that keeps you from putting your fingers on the keyboard is the fear of that feeling of, I can't do it.
Right.
You know? And there's something so courageous, whether you're writing or whether you're putting yourself in front of a bunch of people to sing or whatever it is. It's like,
well, not singing, because anyone can do that.
Yeah, that's true. That doesn't take courage. That takes tequila.
But also to get an original idea, oh my God, how good does that feel? And it's, I was talking to one of my friends recently. It's like, oh, the show's so good. It's like, was it fun filming? Filming's the hard. I don't really love filming.
Oh, really?
Ideas is fun. Being in a room. And that's the thing. I think you probably write both with people and alone, but sometimes when you're with the right people, boy, can an idea go fast, and it can slow right down too. But that's the fun for me. It's just like it wasn't here, and now it's there.
Yeah. So, what was the creative process like for this most recent season of Kids in the Hall? I mean, did you feel like, because when you're young, you have so little fear, and writing a sketch, because your guys' stuff is so conceptual and satirical. It's so like, it's brave. It is the bravest writing. I mean, I think that's what that was so contagious about Kids in the Hall is like, wow, I could have never thought of that. And do you feel more constrained, older, writing these in the same forum?
No, I haven't done it for a while. Like I've written a lot of sitcoms, and it's like, oh, what's my next sitcom idea? And that seems like a bigger ask of your brain. Yeah. But, like I've always got one idea. And I remember when we weren't sure we were going to do the show yet. And Mark I can say this, is usually the most reluctant to do things, right? And so we went out for breakfast. It was in LA. And it's like, I didn't know if he was going to do the show or not. And you can't ask him, because then he'll really squeeze away. Uh-huh. And then he kind of said, I kind of got one idea. And it's like, okay, you have one idea, then you're in, right? Yeah. And that's what it is. Yeah. And then it's like, I got one. And then we both knew that he was going to be doing the show. Yeah. So I think it's always, I got one idea, and then you get another one. But I think sketch writing is the hardest, because it is gunslinger. Nothing existed before or after this one sketch. Yeah. And then you go, I don't know. I've seen in the new season where like I'm a guy who drives an easy on the street 30 miles. That I just thought of it, and it was beautiful to me. Yeah. It's like, oh wow, what a great idea! I love that idea. Idea, I'll leave my wife for that idea. I love it so much. But where did it come from? I don't know. Yeah.
And so when you guys come up with stuff, is it, because I've been in a lot of writers' rooms, and there's usually a healthy writer's room has an out if something is a bad pitch. There's like a running gag that you all do, or there's a shorthand for letting the person know that this is maybe not up to par. Do you guys have that communication? Yeah,
we tease Scott whenever whatever had happened. But I think, one of the things that's really interesting, I think, about us, and I just come from, I sort of grandfathered another sketch show called Tall Boys, which is on Fuse now in the States. And it was just watching them be afraid to pitch and then learn, like, we don't even pitch. Like, Kevin McDonald's will not let us use the word pitch because it's so greasy to him. Yeah. Like, oh, I got a couple ideas. You say, oh, I got something more. Oh, here's a little thought. And I think for us, what is good about us when we're on is we don't care. We'll sit in the lull for 3 minutes just staring at each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because we've been at it so long, it's like being like, in an old marriage where you know that you're actually going to go home together still. And it's like, I remember when we were writing it, it's a piece that didn't make the show, but we didn't have anything. It was like, it was after lunch is always horrible for probably every writer's room, but it's like nothing was happening. And I said, Mark, what about the amazing world of recycling? And just people sort of stared and there was nothing. And then he went, yes, it's a 60s thing. It's cans, swimming in the ocean and children laughing. And it's like, before we knew it, we had like the weirdest Kafka-esque world of recycling sketch. And it's like, nothing existed before it. And then now it's here. And it's not like you're chewing on it and thinking about it. I mean, sometimes that happens too, but that's the fun. That's the best part of the job with the Kids in the Hall is that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that they talk about in the documentary is that you guys were very affected by Eastern European filmmakers and French filmmakers. And that was something that it seems like you gravitated towards is in, I don't know if it was season 4, where you started doing more filmed pieces. And that's where you sort of maybe found that you enjoyed directing more.
Yeah. I think, there's sort of Kids in the Hall East and Kids in the Hall West, and Kids in the Hall West is Mark and I, because we came out from Calgary together. And I think we love, I like jokes too. I like to write funny jokes. 16 on the pole. What are the jokes? But we like character pieces. We like sometimes more Mark than I. Like sometimes like, okay, Mark, give it a rest. Where's the laugh?
Yeah.
And Kevin and Dave are vaudevillians. So they have a different rhythm. And I think, that's what made the show as good, or if it was good as it was, which is like they'd have their funny sketch that was never too long and never took up time in rehearsal or whatever. And then there'd be the Scott Mark actor pieces. And then I had lots of stuff, but I really liked the style of it. I really liked the weird, like how weird can it look, or should it look weird? Or why he's playing clackers? That's a good idea. Yeah. And without knowing why.
Yeah.
And so I and I think once I realized, I watched the show and there was like 4 really funny guys. And then there was one little fucker with a sort of a head that wouldn't stop wiggling. And his hands were always going. And that was me. And I thought, well, I better get a job that isn't acting. And I thought directing might be the job.
That's great. Well, I want to talk about, you've got a new show coming out. You've got, not your first, you've done a few of these one-man shows before, right?
Yeah, I've done about 5. Like they percolate, and they have actually been one of the things that I've done even pre-Kids in the Hall, like being part of a theater community here in Toronto and really wanting to communicate with people and do weird things. Like I had a show called Jazz Stenographers, where she fell in love, of course, with a Tundra butler. But it's just something I love doing. And for some reason, I've gotten to return to it, like after I've done a big piece of work, like right after I did Superstar, directed Superstar or something. It's like, oh, I get to do my show. Right. And so it's kind of sweet, like getting to launch the Kids in the Hall juggernaut, which seems to have been pretty sweet, to be able to kind of, I'm in New York for 2 weeks in a small theater. It's meditation for me,
Yeah, that's a lot of work to put into that, though. So how many times do you put it up to prepare for the New York run?
I actually tooled it a couple times, and I did some shows here in Toronto, which went very well.
Yes, the reviews were outstanding.
Yeah, there were none. No bad reviews. I just did a little. But it's always a bit gooey. I have a friend who we did a play. There's a great book called Letters to Wendy's, which is Joe Wenderoth, weird counterculture book, and we are staging a bit of it. And he said, we should do like 4 weeks rehearsal. And I said, you got a day and a half. I'm not. I think I like to keep things alive and a bit goofy, and they're always there, but I want to keep it alive. And so is it changing each night? I mean, are you rephrasing and things like that, or is it pretty locked down? No, I think, and the great thing is once you really know a show, not to be a boring technician, it's really fun because you can go anywhere. Yeah. And just in the third show, I did a show here in Toronto, and I just said, okay, things not in the show. ASMR Guar didn't make the show. And it's like, oh, what a great idea. Things that didn't make the show. And then now I'll do that. And it's like, where did that come from? And I always do it. I'll write down a little note. Oh, that's a good joke. I'll go, don't do that next time.
Yeah.
So I think, and it's also to please myself, I think, and keep myself excited. I mean, I love my material, not to be gross. And I kind of enjoy the journey of this show because it sort of starts as just like a really funny show. And then it becomes, I have to say, about my, percolating humanism that's always sort of lurked underneath my work. And for me, it's kind of a journey that I take us on in this, as we would call it, this troubled times. And so I enjoy doing that. It's like, it feels like, I'm going to have a massage now or something. It's really enjoyable. Yeah.
So you're percolating humanism, because I think I read something about this, that you feel like earlier in your career, you were somewhat guarded, maybe hiding behind your comedy, and that in this play, there's a kind of a positivity about it.
Yeah. I mean, I do, because sometimes it's like people go, wow, you're such a, what is a people hater? Is that a misanthrope or something?
Sure, misanthrope.
I love people. They frustrate me, and they're little, things. It's like once I saw a woman in red glasses getting splashed by a bus, and she said just to herself, "But it's my birthday," and like I've thought about that, like probably every day for the rest of my life, and so it's almost too much to take, right? And so, but I do think that corny thing, which is we're all in this together. And my show too is about the journey of us accepting love and letting our love leave our body. And there's some quite nice personal stories in there that I think are reflective of the audience, or at least it seems like they are. So that's, but
where do you think, is this coming from? I mean, you're a father, or you said your son's 15 and a half. How old's your daughter?
17 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're at that
I think it's that, but I spent
something about as your kids start to become young adults and you have to start preparing to let go of them. I'm going through this myself because my kids are 21 and 18. And I feel like I want to give them all the love I have left over before they leave. And I want to make that strong connection before they go out on their own.
Yeah. And are they still in the house?
No, they're both off in college.
Right. See, that's what my wife and I are facing, that thing. It's like, our daughter could be gone in 6 months, or she could stay here for 6 years. We don't know yet. She's not sure. But it's like, and I think that's the true tragedy of having a kids is you think, well, you're all together all the time, like making jokes and farting and making each other toast, and you're all in the same boat. And then how could they ever not be with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, but they're out in the world, and I did it too. My mom's quite old. She's had 7 heart attacks.
No, really?
Yeah, she's had, some days she thinks she's my mom. Other days she thinks she's a clock radio, and that's fine with me. But like, I don't sit there thinking about her all the time. Like, I don't know why I thought of her as daughter. What do you need? Oh, can I pick you up? Oh, do you need sushi? Oh, can I drive you somewhere? Oh, is your girlfriend coming over? Well, we can make something. Like, that's all I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what happens when that job's gone? You just, so.
Right. It's almost like with your love, you kind of you can't pace yourself. And I find as a parent, sometimes I was always thinking about, I can't just be their friend. I also have to be a disciplinarian. I have to be somebody that motivates them. I have to be somebody that holds them accountable. And then as you get older, you realize, oh no, I really just have to love them. Like, that's way more important than any of that other stuff.
Well, and also I think the thing is to let your kids, to the best of your ability, because you can't let them know all of you, but to let them know who you are. Like, and I'm a weird guy. We have weird shtick. I have weird stories and weird, I'm always using gallows humor, and, I'm making cocaine about jokes with all of my son's friends from 9 on. And it's like, let them know who you are. Cause Scott just went through that. His dad is very old. And I said to him, like, gee, interview him, ask him about what it was like when he was in his 20s and his 30s, see what he remembers. And it flowered for Scott because it's like, oh yeah, no, he's obviously, this is as obvious as the hills, but it's like, they're people too, and someday your kids will, but of course we joke about when I get old with my son and he will mohawk me and I'll go, yeah, well, you're going to be eating applesauce. I'll be really slow. It's going to take like 10 minutes every spoon. And when that happens, go, remember back to when I said that would happen one day. It's like, we don't pull our punches in the McCullough house.
That's great. Yeah. So in this show, which by the way is at the Soho Playhouse, June 1st through the 12th, which I've been to, it's a great room. And you're going to, so the show, what are the bones of the show? What's the journey here?
Well, it's, there's a personal story that's sort of at the center of it. It is about, without mentioning COVID, it really is about sharing air, that we're sharing air together, that we're in a society together. So there's a theme of that. And it's sort of, hopefully it's a bit of a magic trick where it seems like just it's a stand-up kind of comedy show that has a kind of a cool look. And then at the end, it irises in to, as I say, the, and it's a lot of the flying imagery that I've always had for 20 years. I can never sleep. I'm always awake at the same time every night. And I always imagine myself flying and going and checking on my friends and checking on people, and as a meditation to go to sleep, but also as a kind of a humanistic, because at that time of night, everybody's who's awake at that time of night is sort of somehow vulnerable and together and alone in a weird way. And so there's at the center of it, not the center of it, part of it is I have a friend who we had some hotel emails around that time of night because he couldn't sleep either. And he was in a quite well-known band. And then he eventually got sick. And so we used our gallows humor to get through. And I read some of the emails that we actually wrote each other as he had brain cancer. And it's very funny and it's very kind of sad and beautiful at the same time. So it's really about that. And also, that we keep going, right? Yeah. That everybody who's at the show has survived. Yeah. As we've all survived. And I think as we look, and we've all lost friends, right? And we just have to keep going. And that's the thing for me. And I think there's that in the show, which is we have to keep going.
Sounds like a good message coming out of COVID. And I like the idea of that, the bewitching hour, that hour before you're falling asleep, that your defenses have been worn down. There is such a vulnerability to your state at that time. The things that you may say to your significant other in bed before you go to sleep, or that late night reach out to a friend. There's something very vulnerable there.
Yeah. I think the first hour that you're moving around when you wake up is the worst hour because you're having to get all this stuff done unless you have a really lucky life. But yeah, it's that weird hour. And even more when you wake up with your thoughts. Yeah. You have to going, what if they're going to pick up? Do you think HBO Max likes me or whatever you go through your head?
Right. No, it's where the coal gets thrown in the fire, in the furnace. It's like where you, like, how I get out of bed has a lot to do with my mental state. Like if I'm in a good place, I can actually take a beat and feel myself. But most mornings it's more like you said, like what's the negative thought that's going to drive me out of this bed into my clothes, into the coffee machine right now, because I have to get something done. And so I started meditating years ago, and now I try to get up and go straight to meditation and cut out all that bullshit and try to at least get balanced before I start the day. And when I do, it makes a huge difference.
Well, it's wonderful. One of my best friends has started to do that, and it's changed her life. And I think it's great. And even sometimes, my wife and I, there's a lot going on. We have 2 kids, COVID and all that stuff. It's like sometimes we get anxious. We just say, okay, let's just breathe for a minute here. Yeah. And I do it, even like when we were in the car going to the Tonight Show, Scott was so tense. I was just like, let's listen to this really dumb song that I love called Canadian Summer. and we play it and we just don't talk. And there is something about that. And I actually do that now before I go on stage. Before, I used to go like, oh, I got to go out there and kill. And now it's like, no, what's my intent? I'm just here. I just want to communicate with these people. I just want to share with them, and it's going to be fun because they came. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so to take away ego, which is a lot of, I guess, what you're talking about as well with a lot of your morning work, you take away ego, and then it's kind of beautiful if you can do that.
Yeah. It is a weird dichotomy to be in show business where you're supposed to be promoting yourself and making yourself more important than other people. And at the same time, if you can shrink your ego, somehow that helps you accomplish that. Or at least you keep your sanity. And I think one of the things that it's very hard to balance that, and having a family, I think, is one of the things that is that I say this to young people all the time, young performers. If they ask me for advice, I say, get married and have some kids. Have something in your life that humbles you and keeps your ego, because nothing humbles you more than a family. Kids will constantly make you feel like I have no idea what I'm doing.
With parenting, my son calls me Mr. One Season because I had a couple shows that only went once.
Carpoolers, which I loved.
Yeah, I say, oh, this is my dad, Mr. One Season. It's like, and then I had a couple that went a few seasons now. It's like, yeah, you'll take me down.
Yes, it's amazing. I get such shit from them. They're like, Dad, Sebastian Maniscalco is playing Madison Square Garden. How big is that room you're working in Tacoma this weekend? How are ticket sales for the Friday Night Late show?
Well, Friday Night Late is always a struggle.
Yeah, right, Sebastian's not doing a late show Friday at Madison Square Garden. He can't fill it.
Yeah. Oh, and but isn't that the death of all of it? Like, to compare yourself to other people. And I think, I'm 60. I'm a bit older than you, so I think that does come. And I think it's the sweet thing with the Kids in the Hall now, and it's also, I think, why we've been embraced a little bit coming back. We were never very big, right? We were okay. We were never Kevin Hart walking around with a knapsack. I did a pilot with him, knapsack full of cash that he got from the fucking show he did the night before. Like, why are you carrying a knapsack full of cash? And he says, well, in case I need it, Bruce. Like, which I think is so funny. When I was working, I'll tell a Kevin Hart story. Not that you want any stories, but I was working with him, and we were writing a pilot with him and Bill Burr. And he was like, he comes sometimes late, and then he'll be there for 45 minutes. But as we talk about writing all day, it'll be the best 45 minutes that anybody ever had. Yeah. And that's all you need. And he goes and you just gather it all up and do it. Uh-huh. But he was really late. And then he wrote on my index card, I guarantee I will not drink for 24 hours. And then he crossed it out and said 23 hours.
That's that hour we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the hour. Yeah.
That he needs to drink during that hour. That's it's amazing. I would talk to Leslie Jones. Leslie Jones?
Of course, she's great.
Yeah, so she used to open for Cat Williams on the road, and she would tell me stories about it. It was the same thing. She would make them pay her cash, and she'd go on like a 20-city tour, and she was getting like $3,000 a show to open up for him. Right. She forced them to pay her cash at every gig, because coming up in the black circuit, in comedy, you got stiffed a lot. And so that was just how it was done. You get paid cash. And I said to her, I go, Leslie, this is fucking Bill Graham Presents. This is like, they pay the Rolling Stones. They're going to pay you. You're okay. And she'd show up to her bank, and you got a picture of a 6'2" black woman showing up at the bank with a bag with $60,000 cash in it and going, can I deposit this, please?
Oh, but also, isn't there something great about getting paid in cash?
Oh yeah.
I did a gig in Portland before the lockdown. I was like, can I get a couple grand off my check?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Wow. Oh my God. There's not, it's Yuck Yucks, when I used to see the Yuck Yuck circuit, and they pay you on Saturday night after your last show. You go in the room with the guy and he give you the $750 or whatever you were making for the weekend.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, my friend is a camera guy, and he worked on a movie with Tom Cruise in Pittsburgh. And he said that Tom Cruise has been famous and rich for so long that the only thing that gets him excited is his per diem. He loves when they walk around and they hand him the cash, because I don't know what per diem is, $100 a day or something. And he goes, and he'll say to the camera guy, he'll be like, we get an extra 50 today because it was like a meal penalty, so they got to pay us that also.
Oh, I know. It feels like the free money. I do. I love, yeah. When I did Trailer Park Boys a little while ago, and it's like I arrived and they had an envelope full of cash. What's that? Your per diem for the week. It's like, oh, I'm going to love this job.
Yes. You did. I didn't know you did Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, I did. I did a few episodes earlier on, like a few years ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I did a series they do that they're just in jail now. Uh-huh. And so I did that, and hopefully we'll do another season of that. And we are talking about doing a movie, because and by the way, they are the most fun guys I've ever worked with. It's like the hardest, greatest job.
Really? Yeah.
We shot this series we did called Jail. We did 10 episodes in 19 days. And
wow.
And there's fights in the jail. They're hanging off cars. There's no scripts. It's insanity, but my God, is it fun. Yeah.
Where did you shoot? How did you find an empty jail?
In Halifax. They're so smart. They turned their offices, every inch of it, they've turned into part of a jail, and this can look like that, and that can look like that. They're lovely, kind of brilliant gentlemen.
Yeah. I love that show. My kids, it's like their favorite show. They love it. Although, I'm realizing I don't think they've seen Kids in the Hall, and I think it's time. I don't think they're old enough yet. I think maybe now they will. But what's amazing about Kids in the Hall is how kind of current it is, in the fact that it is very woke. And I think it would really speak to teenagers in this environment that we're in right now. It's very empowering to women. It's very empowering to trans people and gay people. And it's very ahead of its time in that way.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, it's the sweet thing about the documentary, which is on Amazon, it was hard work to be a heterosexual from Calgary who got beaten up, for being gay. It's not the word they used, for wearing like bowling shoes. You'd get beaten up, you get chased by trucks. And then to come to Toronto and find these guys and like kiss Scott Thompson on the lips in the middle of gay paranoia in the 80s, and wasn't paranoia because half his friends died.
Because of AIDS, yeah.
And it's like that's one of the great legacies of the show. And yes, we are fucking feminists and always have been. But it's like, yeah, we did that. And that was nice that we were in that space. And Scott, it wasn't easy for him. And it wasn't easy for us at many times, just because we were known as a gay comedy show, which is ridiculous because we have one gay member, and we're gay, we're queer positive, I guess, as they call it now, and always have been. And so I think that's kind of the sweetness of the show too. But people go, oh yeah, I always liked that. I was in a small town, and my dad and I couldn't speak, and we'd watch your show, and then I came out, and like those are the greatest stories I can get when I talk to people.
Yeah, in the documentary, I forget who was talking about how you would go from city to city, but the same people would show up. There was like the goth girls were there, and the queer guys that seemed like they had found a place that felt safe. And what other kinds of people showed up at your shows? Well, we call it outsiders, which is probably a dumb label in a way, or maybe it's worn out by now, but it's nerds. Like it's nerds. And, I remember my wife once said, well, all your friends are feminine, like all my guy friends. And it's like, yeah, it's not macho. It's kind people. It's people who are also feminine, and men who are feminine, and weirdos, and people who don't think that they own all the space in the world, that they're going to talk and everybody else is going to listen. They're all there to kind of look at the world in a different way together and heal, maybe, or just think things are weird in the same way. And it's really uniting to have, and we never had that when we just make the show. We just work all the time. And then we started touring. It's like, and some people go, I didn't know anyone liked you. Like the audience would go, I didn't know anyone liked you but me. Yeah.
And some people would be disappointed. Why are you playing a 2,000 seat theater? It's like, I don't know either. Because there's 2,000 of you. And so it's really unifying and uniting. And at first I was scared of our fans. I didn't want to meet them. I didn't want to talk to them because I just wanted to be in my Bruce hole. And then once I started realizing putting away ego and realizing, like, a few people are a little off kilter, but most of them are so kind, and they drove 3 hours to come see me, and they work at a muffler shop or at a bank or they're in the arts. Like, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And especially since you guys, like the Beatles, is you did your 10,000 hours. You spent a lot of time playing to crowds of 20 people, 30 people, and I believe me, I know the frustration of that. I was on the same road, and I know that when you're in the middle of that, you start to wonder if it's ever going to happen. And then when it finally does, it's like you guys were so ready. You were just you had done your time.
Yeah, but oddly, we never talked about what would happen when the show worked. It was just all like, it's like a kid get to prom. They don't know what to do after prom. It's like. Right. And I remember when we first played at like, what's that? The Roxy in LA. They flew us in, and HBO famously changed all the toilet seats because they were too grungy, because there's some high-end people coming from HBO.
Really?
Yeah, they changed the toilet seats. But I remember Dave looking at me and going, we're all going to move here. And I thought, fuck you, Foley. I'm never leaving Canada. Like, in my head. Yeah. Because we never talked about what we were going to do after. And then, of course, I ended up moving there. I was there for 17 years. But it's like, it was interesting that we were ready. We had the show, and then we had no idea what to do after, in a way, as nobody does, as I'm friends with, the SCTV people, or, some of the Saturday Night Live cast have done really well. Some don't know what to do because that family's gone, even the family they auditioned for. So, yeah, we were ready. We really were, but we'd never talked about how we run a show or anything past, let's get a show.
Isn't it funny? Like, do you remember that show VH1's Behind the Music?
Yeah, of course.
And it's so funny how you guys fit perfectly into the template of that show. There was the struggle at the beginning, but the joy, and then suddenly the big break, and then the failure, and then the
cancer
breakup
scare with Scott.
The what?
Cancer scare with Scott.
The cancer scare, and then Dave Foley leaving to do a sitcom, and you guys kind of breaking up, but then the comeback, and now there's this happy ending. I mean, a seemingly very happy ending where you guys are, kind of having another resurgence. Like this. Are you guys going to tour following this past season that's coming out?
There's some reluctance by the reluctant one in the group, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
When we met with the guy from Rolling Stone, he said, like, this documentary is like a rom-com.
Yeah, it really is.
We've been miserable to each other. Like, we're not, like, we're very kind. We love each other to death, but it's like, no, we take no prisoners. And I may have mentioned this in the doc, but it's like when Scott had cancer, Mark said he doesn't get to win a comedy argument just because he has cancer. Like, wow.
That's fantastic.
That's gay shit, right? Like,
that's great.
You call me a clown, you get killed. That's
And you were honest in the documentary where you said at a certain point you felt, and I think I read this in print as well, that you felt like going back, you maybe wouldn't have been as abrasive or aggressive as you were. And I think it came from a healthy place of wanting the troupe to be as strong as possible and wanting the shows to be as strong as possible. But talk about how you were back then and how you might have added to some of the friction in the group.
Oh, yeah. And you know what it is? And this is why I say it's so nice to have had the show with the tall boys, these young men who are to figure out what it's like to have your own show. No one told us what it was like to have our own show. Right. And of course, that was, the 80s, 90s show business. You could yell at people and no one told you you can't yell at people. Yeah. And so, like, it was so important what we were doing. So there was abrasion for sure. And it's like, no, didn't we talk about that in the meeting? Why do we have this fucking prop? This is a fail. Like, and I know now that the person holding that prop, it wasn't their fault, and you just broke them or whatever. Yeah. And so now I can see the world as a bunch of interactions that I didn't before because it was all me focused. And I think, I was rough on the group, and I did whatever. Like, I wouldn't do promos because I thought it wasn't cool to say, watch my show. Uh-huh. So I'd just be standing there staring at the camera, and they'd all just say, "Watch our show." And I go, "We're not." Like, and so I did sort of, well, listen, we're all horrible, but I was horrible in that way. And, actually when we did Death Comes to Town, which was our miniseries, which is also on Amazon Prime or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Everything you guys have
that was kind of, I produced that. And, yeah. And so I shouldered that and produced it. And, I said, guys, let's do it. I'll set it up and all that. And that was kind of my love letter to the troupe. I'm going to be the nicest guy to work with because I work for you now if I'm producing this show. And I think that also changed the chemistry of the troupe because it was like, and Scott had cancer at that time too. So it was like, I started that and then Scott had cancer. So I had to be, I don't want to say daddy, it's such a loaded word now, but I had to help shepherd that show, to get Scott through, which I've always done. When he's had a bad show, he has a bad Buddy Cole show. It's like everybody says, "Oh, we should go back." I go, "Let me go back for a couple minutes first."
Yeah.
And so that was, I think, sweet, and I think that's what really brought us unbelievably closer together is getting through that miniseries.
Right.
Which paved the way much later to we did another tour, but let's do another show again.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have you guys, I just want to ask you, watching the documentary and what was the name of the club you guys started in Toronto?
The Rivoli. The
Rivoli.
Yeah.
What, was there ever a show that was just so bad that you guys just walked off stage and stopped, or you always got through it?
I think we always got through. One of our low points, which isn't documented in the documentary, is we went to Letterman, and this was, I don't know what years this were. This was like 2008 for some reason. This is actually when we got closest to breaking up, and we weren't even promoting anything. I don't know why we were on Letterman. I don't even think Letterman was a particular fans of our work or knew our work. And Kevin McDonald was having a particular time with his girlfriend at the time, and they were fighting. And he said, "Well, I can't come camera block because I have to go see some museums." It's like, you're not going to camera block for Letterman? That's what you're supposed to do. And so he didn't. And Dave quipped, "Oh, I think Kevin thinks he's on his honeymoon." And he wasn't. And so it was horrible. We bombed. We were mad. And it was like, that's when Mark and I had a pizza slice and we said, I don't think this is going to keep going. And somehow it kept going. But that, for me, that was the closest we came to breaking up. Just like, because we didn't care. We didn't put in the work. And Kevin is very apologetic about that.
Yeah. It sounds like everybody has sort of made a mea culpa to the group. It's like everybody has kind of come back and said, "I learned from this," and that you guys are stronger because of it.
Yeah. And sometimes you're on the outside of the group. It's a weird thing. Like sometimes it'll be me because I'm doing my other show or whatever. And I'll be the one who says, the business isn't good. We're not doing it. So you get on the outside of the group, or Scott's ranting about something that isn't of particular interest to anybody else. So he becomes on the outside of the group for a while, or Kevin in whatever, so everybody has a turn kind of being outside the group slightly, and then they get brought back stronger. And then another person sort of pops out or something. But now it doesn't feel like there's anybody on the outside, which is very rare,
Wow. Isn't it nice getting older? There's so many horrible things about getting older, but there's a couple things like grace that enter into your psyche as you get older.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. I saw Mavis Staples. I think she was 75.
Oh yeah.
UCLA.
Yeah.
And she's like, she does an encore and says, "There's CDs for sale in the lobby." And it's like, I did not do a black accent. Make that night. I just sort of get sort of feminine. And it's like, I want to do that. I want to be, selling being 75 and still on the road. And So that's the cool part about age. Because it's like, it's ridiculous now that none of the kids in the hall are dead. Like statistically, at least one of us conked.
Right.
And I do, it feels now, and this is of course, somebody gets hit by lightning or dies of cancer. But it feels like we'll keep going for a while.
Yeah. Good. 2 more questions and I'll let you go. What is the sketch that you guys have done in the past that most makes you cringe now when you think about it?
Well, it doesn't cringe. It makes me laugh that we did it. We used to do a thing on stage that we never shot called "Those Fucking Something Brothers." it was a show about Mark as a director going, oh, you goddamn motherfuckers, you, like it was all dirty language. And I don't know if you yeah. And we'd come out and we're like, you know, the Marx Brothers, but our shtick was, our act was that we would just spit in each other's faces. And so, and people.
And you'd really do it?
Oh, we'd really do it. And and we keep doing it. And then we say, okay, take two. And it's just like, and people went insane. Like it killed them. I think some people laughed. It was just so like horrific. And this was in the AIDS time in the 80s. And it was
that's amazing.
Yeah. I was like, that's pretty fun. So I don't know if that's a failure, but that's something that we think about.
The last thing I'll ask you is, who are the Gregs you know?
Well, you, Greg Walter, my manager, Greg Morrison, a musical theater guy. I don't know a lot of Gregs.
That's it.
There should be more Gregs.
I thought that Canada was filthy with Gregs. I guess Craigs. There's more Craigs.
There's a lot of Craigs.
Yeah.
Who are the Gregs you know?
Well, Greg Giraldo, sadly, who passed.
Yes, of course.
That was very sad. Greg Rogel, who's a fine comedian in New York City.
Yeah. Greg, come down to my show. Prove it.
What's that?
I want him to come and do like a tight 105 minutes, maybe one night before my show.
Oh, you should have him come down to do. Are you going to have somebody open for you at your shows?
No.
Oh, you should. There's so many great comics in New York. They could come down and do 10 minutes.
It's chemically weird somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time. I tell people, go see the show. It's called Tales of Bravery and Stupidity, June 1st through the 12th. Tickets available at sohoplayhouse.com. Also, the documentary is amazing on Amazon. It's worth getting Amazon just to watch it. It's just like, you guys are, Canada has given the United States a lot of things, but sketch comedy is probably maybe the greatest import we've gotten from you guys. And you are among the best that have ever done it. And this really chronicles it well.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
And then, of course, the new series of Kids in the Hall is also on there. So check it all out. It's great.
Yeah, don't watch that either. You don't need to watch that.
See, you don't like doing promos. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. And we'll meet sometime, I hope.
I hope so. Okay.
Keep rocking.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
Yeah. Bye.
All right.